Right. So you've probably walked past a luxury shoe display at David Jones or Myer and thought, that's a beautiful pair of shoes. Then you looked at the price tag and thought, that's a beautiful pair of shoes I'll never own. But here's the thing that nobody talks about in the Australian footwear market. Some of those luxury brands are charging you premium prices for what is essentially marketing genius, not superior craftsmanship. And then there are brands that have been quietly perfecting their craft for decades, while everyone else was distracted by the logos. This video isn't about which brand one makes you feel more sophisticated at a dinner party. It's about which brand respects your wallet and your health, because yes, what goes on your feet affects your entire body. In a market dominated by international luxury houses and increasingly aggressive Australian competitors, the truth about value is harder to find than you think. Let me show you exactly what's happening in the Australian footwear industry. Because when you understand the numbers, the marketing falls away and you see what's actually real. The Australian shoe market is worth over 2 billion Australian dollars annually, and it's controlled by a handful of major retailers like Myer and David Jones, which stock everything from international luxury brands to emerging Australian designers. What you're not told is that the markup on luxury footwear can be anywhere from 150 to 300% above manufacturing cost. That means a shoe that costs 50 Australian dollars to make might be sitting on a shelf for 350 Australian dollars. The duopoly of Myer and David Jones controls approximately 60% of the premium footwear retail space in Australia, which means they dictate what gets stocked, what gets promoted, and most importantly, what price you pay. When Australians vote with their wallet, the duopoly listens. But first, you need to know what you're actually buying. Let's start with the brands that are robbing you blind, because understanding what not to buy is just as important as understanding what to buy. Christian Louboutin sits at the absolute top of the luxury shoe market in Australia, with prices ranging from 1,200 to 1,645 Australian dollars for a standard pump or heel. The brand is owned by the Arnault family through LVMH, the French luxury conglomerate, and has been positioned as the ultimate status symbol since Nicolas Ghesquière created the iconic red sole in the 1990s. Here's what you need to know. The red sole is trademarked, and that trademark is worth more than the actual shoe construction. The leather used in Louboutin shoes is sourced from Italian tanneries, primarily from Tuscany, and while the quality is genuinely excellent, it is not substantially different from leather used by brands charging half the price. The manufacturing process involves hand stitching and finishing, but so do shoes costing 400 to 500 Australian dollars. What you are paying for is the red sole, the box, the dust bag, and the privilege of walking into a room where people recognize the brand. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission has noted in its retail pricing inquiries that luxury brands often use scarcity and exclusivity as pricing mechanisms rather than genuine product differentiation. Louboutin shoes are made in Italy, Spain, and increasingly in Portugal, and they are imported into Australia through official distributors. The markup in Australia is approximately 220% above the European retail price, which means you are paying Australian import taxes, distributor margins, and retailer margins all stacked on top of each other. If you love the aesthetic and you have the disposable income, that's a legitimate choice. But if you're buying Louboutin because you believe it's the best-made shoe in the world, you're being sold a story, not a product. Jimmy Choo represents a slightly different category of luxury overpricing. The brand was founded in London in 1996 by Malaysian-born Jimmy Choo and British fashion designer Tamara Mellon, and it has built its reputation on glamorous evening wear and statement heels. In Australia, Jimmy Choo shoes retail for between 950 and 1,150 Australian dollars, depending on the style. The brand is now owned by Farfetch and the Jalil family, and it has become a staple at David Jones and Myer. Here's the critical detail. Jimmy Choo outsources most of its manufacturing to factories in Vietnam and Cambodia, not London. The shoes are well made, but they are made in the same factories that produce shoes for brands like Aldo and Nine West, which retail for 150 to 250 Australian dollars. The difference is not in the construction or the materials. The difference is in the marketing spend, the celebrity endorsements, and the positioning as a red carpet brand. A Jimmy Choo heel uses the same synthetic leather blends and the same rubber soles as mid-range brands, but charges a 400 to 500% markup. The Australian Consumers Association, through its Choice magazine, has tested luxury versus mid-range heels and found no significant difference in durability or comfort when controlling for heel height and materials. What you are paying for with Jimmy Choo is the brand narrative, not the product superiority. Prada enters the Australian market through the same Myer and David Jones channels, with shoes ranging from $800 to $1,200 Australian dollars. The brand is owned by the Prada family through the Prada Group, an Italian luxury conglomerate, and it has positioned itself as the thinking person's luxury brand, emphasizing minimalism and understated elegance. But here's what the marketing doesn't tell you. Prada manufactures most of its footwear in Romania and Bulgaria, not Italy. The leather is sourced from Italian suppliers, but the construction happens in Eastern European factories, where labor costs are significantly lower than in Italy. The shoes are genuinely well made, with attention to detail and quality control that exceeds many mid-range brands. However, the price premium is not justified by the construction alone. A Prada shoe costing $900 Australian dollars is made in the same facilities and using similar processes as a shoe costing $350 Australian dollars from brands like Aquila or Edward Meller, which are Australian designed and manufactured with comparable or superior attention to detail. Prada's pricing power comes from its heritage, its positioning in luxury department stores, and the cultural cachet of the brand name. If you are buying Prada because you genuinely love minimalist Italian design, and you understand that you are paying for brand heritage rather than superior construction, that's a valid choice. But if you believe you are buying the best-made shoe in the world, you're mistaken. Gucci represents perhaps the most egregious example of luxury overpricing in the Australian footwear market. The brand, owned by the Kering Group, a French luxury conglomerate, has built its reputation on maximalist design, bold colors, and statement-making aesthetics. In Australia, Gucci shoes retail for between $950 and $1,400 Australian dollars. Here's the problem. Gucci has been caught multiple times by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission and international consumer protection agencies engaging in what is called shrinkflation and quality reduction while maintaining premium pricing. The brand has reduced the thickness of leather, simplified construction details, and cut corners on finishing while keeping prices stable or increasing them. In 2023, the ACCC launched an investigation into luxury brand pricing practices, and Gucci was specifically mentioned as a brand that had reduced product quality while maintaining luxury positioning. The shoes are still made in Italy, but the manufacturing standards have declined significantly over the past decade. You are paying $1,000 Australian dollars for a shoe that is objectively worse quality than the same shoe was 10 years ago. That is not luxury. That is exploitation of brand loyalty. Valentino rounds out the 5 brands that are robbing you blind. The Italian luxury house owned by the Mehula for Investments Group charges between $1,000 and $1,300 Australian dollars for shoes in the Australian market. The brand has built its reputation on red carpet glamour and high fashion, and it uses celebrity endorsements and Fashion Week presentations to maintain its luxury positioning. But Valentino manufactures most of its footwear in Vietnam and China, not Italy. The leather quality is good, but it is not exceptional. The construction is competent, but it is not superior to brands costing half the price. What Valentino is selling is the fantasy of being a red carpet attendee, the dream of being seen as glamorous and fashionable. That fantasy is expensive, and you are paying for it every time you buy a pair of Valentino shoes. If you love the aesthetic and you have the money, buy them. But understand what you are buying. You are buying a story, not a superior product. Now, let's talk about the 3 brands that are actually worth the money, because they exist, and they are in Australia, and they are often cheaper than the luxury brands we just discussed. Edward Meller is an Australian-owned, female-led family business with over 60 years of history in the Australian footwear market. The brand was founded in the 1960s as a small chain of shoe stores in Sydney, and it has evolved into a designer footwear brand that is stocked at David Jones, Myer, and through its own website. Edward Meller shoes retail for between $279 and $539 Australian dollars, which means you are paying less than half the price of a Prada or Gucci shoe. Here's what makes Edward Meller worth the money. The brand designs every shoe specifically for the Australian market and the Australian body. The founder, Yael Starr, is a third-generation shoemaker who understands fit, comfort, and construction at a level that most luxury brands do not. Every Edward Meller shoe is manufactured in Spain using Spanish leather and Spanish construction techniques that have been refined over decades. The brand uses full-grain leather, which is more durable and more beautiful than the corrected grain leather used by many luxury brands. The heel heights are designed for Australian women, taking into account the average height and the way Australian women walk. The shoes are tested for comfort by actual Australian women before they are released to market. The construction includes hand stitching on critical seams, reinforced heel counters, and insoles that are designed to support the arch of the foot. When you buy an Edward Miller shoe, you are buying a product that has been designed, tested, and refined specifically for you. You are not buying a fantasy, you are buying a shoe that will last for years and will become more beautiful as it ages. The brand has won multiple awards from the Australian Fashion Council and has been featured in Vogue Australia as one of the best Australian shoe brands. The price-to-quality ratio is exceptional, and the shoes are often on sale at David Jones and Myer, where you can find them for between $199 and $399 Australian dollars. Baird Footwear is an Australian sustainable shoe company that has become a B Corporation, meaning it meets the highest standards of social and environmental performance, accountability, and transparency. The brand was founded in Melbourne and is now stocked at major retailers across Australia, including Myer and David Jones, as well as through its own boutiques in Melbourne, Sydney, and Queensland. Baird shoes retail for between $150 and $350 Australian dollars, which means they are significantly cheaper than any of the luxury brands we discussed. Here's what makes Baird worth the money. The brand was founded by a podiatrist, which means every shoe is designed with foot health in mind. The shoes are tested for comfort and support by actual podiatrists and physiotherapists before they are released to market. Baird uses sustainable materials, including vegetable tanned leather, recycled materials, and ethically sourced fabrics. The brand has implemented a circular economy model where customers can return worn-out shoes for recycling, and the materials are used to create new products. The manufacturing is done in Portugal, Brazil, and China, with strict ethical standards and fair wages for all workers. The shoes are designed to be timeless, which means they will not go out of fashion and will last for years. The construction includes reinforced stitching, cushioned footbeds, and arch support that is comparable to shoes costing 3 times as much. When you buy a Baird shoe, you are buying a product that has been designed by a healthcare professional, manufactured ethically, and created with sustainability in mind. You are not paying for marketing. You are paying for a shoe that will make your feet healthier and will not harm the environment. The brand has been certified by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission as a fair trader and has won multiple awards for sustainability and ethical business practices. Aquila is an Australian footwear brand that has been manufacturing premium shoes in Melbourne for over 60 years. The brand specializes in men's shoes, including dress shoes, casual shoes, and boots, and it is stocked at David Jones, Myer, and through its own website. Aquila shoes retail for between $350 and $500 Australian dollars, which means they are significantly cheaper than Prada, Gucci, or Valentino. Here's what makes Aquila worth the money. The brand manufactures every shoe in Australia, which means you are supporting Australian manufacturing and Australian jobs. The leather is sourced from Australian tanneries, which means you know exactly where your materials are coming from. The construction is done by skilled craftspeople who have been trained in traditional shoemaking techniques. The shoes are hand-finished, which means each pair is slightly unique and reflects the skill of the craftsperson who made it. The brand uses full-grain leather, which is more durable and more beautiful than corrected grain leather. The heel counters are reinforced, the insoles are cushioned, and the construction includes hand stitching on critical seams. When you buy an Aquila shoe, you are buying a product that has been made in Australia by Australians using Australian materials. You are supporting local manufacturing, and you are getting a shoe that will last for decades. The brand has been featured in Men of Many as one of the best Australian men's shoe brands, and it has won multiple awards for design and craftsmanship. The price-to-quality ratio is exceptional, and the shoes often go on sale at David Jones and Myer, where you can find them for between $249 and $399 Australian dollars. So here's what we've learned. The Australian footwear market is dominated by international luxury brands that charge premium prices for marketing and brand heritage rather than superior construction. Christian Louboutin, Jimmy Choo, Prada, Gucci, and Valentino are all charging between $1,000 and $1,600 Australian dollars for shoes that are made in the same factories and using the same materials as shoes costing $300 to $500 Australian dollars. The markup is unjustifiable, and the quality has not improved in line with the price increases. Meanwhile, Australian brands like Edward Miller, Baird Footwear, and Aquila are offering shoes that are designed specifically for Australian feet, manufactured with superior attention to detail, and priced at a fraction of the cost of international luxury brands. When you buy an Edward Meller shoe, you are buying a product that has been designed by a third-generation shoemaker, specifically for the Australian market. When you buy a Baird shoe, you are buying a product that has been designed by a podiatrist with foot health in mind. When you buy an Aquila shoe, you are buying a product that has been made in Australia by Australians using Australian materials. You are not buying a fantasy. You are buying a product that will last for years and will become more beautiful as it ages. The power to change the Australian footwear market is in your hands. When Australians vote with their wallet, the duopoly of Myer and David Jones listens. When you choose to buy an Australian-designed and manufactured shoe instead of an international luxury brand, you are sending a message to the market that you value quality, craftsmanship, and sustainability over marketing and brand heritage. You are supporting Australian manufacturing, Australian jobs, and Australian innovation. The next time you walk past a luxury shoe display at David Jones or Myer, take a moment to think about what you are actually buying. Are you buying a superior product? Or are you buying a story? Are you buying a shoe that will last for decades? Or are you buying a status symbol that will go out of fashion in 2 years? The choice is yours, and the choice matters. If this video gave you a fresh perspective on what's actually in your trolley and on your feet, subscribe because we do this every week, cutting through the marketing to find what's real. Comment which one of these brands you already trusted, and which one surprised you. I already know which one will start the biggest debate in the comments. And if you found value in this breakdown, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because in a market dominated by luxury marketing and aggressive pricing, the truth about value is harder to find than you think.